guys, this is Shawa360 and this is going to be a really quick video, but before I get started talking about this video, I want to apologize for the weird title name. I just don't want people who shouldn't be watching this video watch this video. But I wanted to talk very briefly about the whole case against Park Yu-chun. And the reason I want to talk about this case is because I hear a lot of opinions here and there, but I want to kind of bring it into context with maybe an international point of view instead of trying to go based on like a fan point of view or trying to go based on, examining Korean culture, because I can't do that because I'm not Korean and I'm culturally illiterate when it comes to some of the more subtle points of Korean culture. Even though I will say this, there are a couple of things that in news translations of this story I think might have been said in a way to kind of protect the more seedy elements of this story that have to do with Korean culture, i.e. the boyfriend, who probably in all intents and purposes is probably this young lady's pimp. But I don't want to talk about that too much because, like I said, I am culturally illiterate when it comes to that, and I'm not the one to speak on it because I really don't know as much about the subject as I should. But what I want to talk about is this idea of celebrity and how it kind of clouds, what can and can't be considered the truth. And the motivation for people to come out in droves and how that kind of also manipulates what people see as truth and what they don't see as truth. So when the news came out that Park Yu-chun was being accused of sexual assault, and the way that the story kind of sounds, it sounds like he was visiting a host club, and from what I understand, host clubs can be nice, very official affairs, very private lounge areas, but they can also be places where there is an understanding that if you want to have intimate services with a young person of your choosing, you can. So basically, kind of a smokescreen for prostitution, kind of like a brothel, if you will. But from the way the story sounds, Park Yu-chun is a frequent visitor to these clubs, and that the women who are accusing him are women who work as employees at said clubs as bartenders, hosts, servers, the like, and that they have been going to the restroom with Mr. Park, and in the restroom they have been engaging in sexual activity, intimate services, but that Mr. Park is not paying them. Instead, he's, kind of performing a dine and dash, if you will. Boy, that's a poor choice of words. And because of that one young lady, her boyfriend decided to press charges for sexual assault. And then after that, more accusers came out of the woodwork, and now we've got this whole big thing. Number one, if Yu-chun is a frequent visitor of host clubs, and they are host clubs where it is known that intimate services are being provided, that makes it a problem, because now you have a situation where all parties have unclean hands. Because it's one thing to maybe visit a host club once and not know that this is a place where prostitution is taking place. But if he really did go to these places several times, maybe make repeat visits, you already know what it is. You've chosen to go here, so, you've kind of put yourself in an awkward position. Secondly, in terms of fame, yes, it is difficult when you're a celebrity, because people are always coming out of the woodwork and saying, hey, this person did this to me, or this person did that to me. And a lot of times it is totally false. Like, it's just completely untrue. But you've been run through the ringer until you can find that this situation is untrue. But then there are also times where multiple accusers come out later on down the road because they needed that one person to be brave enough to speak in order for them to be able to tell their truth, because the celebrity is so powerful, is so well known, and they're afraid for themselves to be attacked. And so in that instance, this is a really hard situation to judge. But I think what it takes is understanding on the part of the fans about both sides of this tale. And just to kind of give you an idea of what that means, I have one celebrity that comes to mind first who has literally been on both sides of this tale, and that celebrity is Bill Cosby. Several years ago, there was a young lady who said that Bill Cosby was her father, and she was found guilty of blackmail because she had told him, you need to pay me a certain amount of money or I'm going to tell everybody that you're my dad. And Bill Cosby, I think, wore a wire. The FBI got involved. This lady was found out to be false. She's like, well, let's do the DNA test to prove that he's my dad. And then after that, you can't really say it's blackmail, even though you totally can. And the DNA test proved that Bill Cosby was not her father. He was just a guy who I guess had been helping her mom out all while she was growing up. And this woman ended up being, taken to jail for a long amount of time. Then, years later, a comedian does a stand-up act where he says that Bill Cosby, is a known rapist. And people are shocked, but then they go back in the archives and they see where there have been previous rape allegations against Bill Cosby that were kind of quietly swept under the radar in the media. And one of those cases in particular, the lady ended up settling out of court with Bill Cosby, and there was a deposition that kind of acknowledged that he did have sex with this lady and that what is termed date rape drugs were involved. And after that, several more women came out saying that this happened to them. And so you have Bill Cosby, mega celebrity in the United States. Like, he really is a major celebrity in the United States. He's being, on one place, vindicated by somebody who was trying to use him for money and for his celebrity to use that against him. And then on the other hand, you have women who felt cowed and afraid to try to go against this huge celebrity, but it wasn't until somebody else was brave and somebody else brought it to the forefront that they felt comfortable to come out with their stories and that they're starting to be believed. So when you think about it like that, how can you make a judgment right now? Honestly, the only thing I can say is, depending on the results of the police investigation and, how much of that investigation can be revealed to all of us, that's when I'm going to be ready to make my judgment. Because despite what we want to believe, celebrities aren't who we think they are. As much as you think you know them, as much as you feel like you've grown up with a celebrity, or they did such a great job acting in a show, or they are such great music makers, or anything else, the truth of the matter is we don't know the heart of celebrities. And more every day, we find out terrible things about the celebrities we thought we knew. None of us thought that Prince was a drug addict, and he dies of a drug overdose. None of us thought that the guy from Glee was a pedophile until they caught the images on his computer. None of us, well, I won't say none of us, but those of you who grew up in the UK probably never thought that Jimmy Savile was the absolute fucking monster he turned out to be. And it just goes to show a lot of us don't know. We assume, but we don't really know. So I don't think this is a case where you can use the person's celebrity as a vote in their favor or a vote against them because the waters are so muddied. But I also feel like you can't necessarily come down on the accuser automatically because maybe they're accuser number 3 or they're accuser number 4. And I don't think that you can necessarily take them being a person who works as a sex worker as a reason to discredit them, because while you may feel that sex workers are the lowest of the low, I personally feel that sex workers are human beings. And I feel like the majority of people who come into sex work don't come into that because that's what they always wanted to do. I think a lot of people who go into sex work because they're people who are already being taken advantage of, and they're already involved in a really seedy underbelly of society. And I think they're people who deserve protections. I don't think that just because you're a prostitute for a living that you are allowed to be raped. And if a person is having sex with you and they're not giving you what they were supposed to give you, then they're no longer having consensual sex with you. At that point, in my opinion, they're raping you because you didn't want to have sex with them just because they're so hot. You just wanted them to pay you because possibly your boyfriend was waiting to get his money. And I just feel like we need to put our fan caps aside and we need to really look at this from a personal, humane level. And once we do that, then we need to look at these investigations and take that real proof and then maybe finally we can come up with our real opinions on this. But until such time, I don't think we can. But I think it's wrong for us to vilify Yuchen right off the bat, but I also think it's wrong for us to vilify these accusers. I think that we need to go all over the place. You know, I find it very sad that in order for somebody who's a sex worker to get protections against assault, they might be possibly forced to make up a story, because them being a sex worker and already being, you know, under the cloud of doing things that are illegal, this is the only way that maybe they can get somebody to take up for them. I find that sad, you know, but that's the realities of our world. That is what it is. So, yeah. At this time, I hold no guilt or innocence, but I just want you to keep these examples in mind when you're hearing this story. Nothing is as it seems, especially if you're getting any of these stories through translated websites like Sumpy and All K-Pop and K-Netizens. You're getting translations. If you don't read Hangul, if you didn't grow up in Korean culture to understand maybe the context of a lot of this stuff, you're going to be at an extreme disadvantage when it comes to making any kind of a judgment here. But look at your own countries and look at the people who maybe have been involved with scandal. And look at both sides, the people that have been involved in scandal and it turned out not to be true, and the people that have been involved in scandal who maybe for a long time no one said anything, and then later on the problem was way worse than what anybody could have ever imagined it could have been. You know, Gary Glitter, that horror show, you know, there's so many that could be named. There's people whose names I won't even think of. I don't know why I'm stuck in the UK. Not saying that you all have celebrity perverts, but I think there was one guy who was a member of a band in the UK, and it came to light that the groupies that he was having relationships with, he was telling them that if they wanted to stay on his good side or stay in a relationship with him, they needed to be willing to allow him to have sex with their children. That is an absolute true story, guys. It's an absolute true story. So that's why I'm saying, like, you can't approach these situations as a fan. You have to approach these situations as a human being. And I hope that's what people are going to do. But that's my opinion of this whole thing. And a lot of people have been waiting for me to talk about it. And like I said, when I was telling a couple people how I felt about it, my opinion is very different than maybe what you would expect my opinion to be. But I'm also a lot older than a lot of people who listen to K-pop. And because of that, I have a lot of life experience tucked under my belt. And there's just never been a time when the media got it 100% right. There's just never been a time. And when you're talking about translated media at that, we'll never know. We'll never know. But we really do need to wait and see what happens. And whatever happens, however it happens, we need to try to offer support to the wronged party if we can. Because one other thing that's the outcome of this total situation is that nobody's life involved in this will ever be the same. No one. All of their lives have changed. Whether the accusers, if it's the absolute truth that this happened, their lives will never be the same. Yuchen, if it's turned out that this is all fake, his life will never be the same. Any kind of freedom he thought he had in his personal life will be absolutely destroyed, because he'll know in the back of his mind, any place I go, anywhere I go, anyone I talk to, whatever I do, I have to be worried about people twisting it. These young ladies, if it turns out to be true, their friends and their families and their colleagues who maybe don't know that they're sex workers will all know now. And they've had to deal with the fact that they've possibly been raped. You know, because, I mean, they might have been engaged in sex work, but they probably never expected to be taken advantage of by a celebrity, you know, and they're going to have to deal with his fans, you know, trying to find them and put their information out there and harassing them. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Just, this is a life-changing situation for everyone involved. And because of that, it doesn't do us any good to try to put our 2 cents on there, because the implications for the real people involved in this are so much higher. The stakes are so much higher than they are for us as fans. No matter how much we love these celebrities, you know, at the end of the day, we could always find a new celebrity to love. Or we can, you know, mourn that we no longer have this celebrity to love. But these people have to live with the real life consequences of however this turns out. And for that reason alone, we really need to be a little bit more conscientious about how we judge this. I've talked way too long. Sorry guys, I said this was going to be a short video and it totally isn't. But thank you for listening to my thoughts and opinions. I hope that this helped with some of you in trying to process your own thoughts and opinions. And I really did try to be fair, even though I think I listed way more guilty celebrities and I don't think I listed really any innocent celebrities. I'm sorry about that. But definitely there are innocent celebrities out there. There really are. There's some people who have had their lives destroyed by a negative press that had nothing to do with them. And I pray for those people too, because, you know, even if the truth is great, the lie lives for a lot longer. All right, guys. Talk with you later. Bye.